Hello and welcome to episode 412 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now I'm thrilled to announce that I'm joined by a returning guest for Mark and Me today. It's someone now that's been on the podcast 3 times. They first came on when Sum 41 were playing Slam Dunk. He then came back when they were at Download Festival, but this time round he gets his own special. I'm thrilled to announce that I'm joined by Dave from Sum 41. Genuinely one of my favourite people on the planet, one of the most sincere, caring, loving guys out there. He is so kind with the time that he gives to the guests on podcasts for all press, and I'm so grateful that I get to sit here today for over an hour and talk all things Sum 41. Obviously on today's episode we talk about the breakup of the band, which still is depressing, I still don't want to believe is real. We talk about the history and the legacy that the band will leave, Dave's childhood and everything else that's ever influenced him to pick up the guitar and be the person he is now, and so much more. And that interview will be coming up in just a couple of minutes' time. But before I get to it, I want to give a shout out to the first sponsor of Mark and Me, Vice Press. If you're in the market for any brilliant collectibles, posters, official prints, then go on vicepress.com, and if you use the discount code MarkandMe10, you get 10% off your first purchase. So go and check it out, and thanks again to those guys for sponsoring Mark and Me. I want to get straight to the interview now, because me and Dave honestly hit it off. He's so good, and I just want you to hear it. So here is me and Dave from Sum 41 talking all things music. So Dave, welcome back to the Mark and Me podcast.
No, Mark, it's good to be back, buddy.
It's been a while, and just before we started recording, we met in June face to face, because obviously it was Download, but prior to that it was Slam Dunk last year. So it's like it's been a bit of a crazy couple of years, but now we're finally here to not be at a festival. We can talk for longer. We've not got someone in the background saying 2 more minutes left, guys, and it feels a lot better to have
Yeah.
a bit of one-on-one time.
Yeah, festival-y friendships are pretty nice, but this is preferable. That's for
That's
sure.
it, all day long.
Yeah. And Download was muddy too, right? Like
It
just
was
overly.
crazy.
Yeah. My cousin, I always meet up with her for every single time I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
And she was maybe 20 feet away from me across a pit of mud. And I almost called it. I was almost like, yeah, on the phone, like we can't meet up.
Let's leave this.
Yeah.
The worst thing
Remember
was with
me.
that festival, one day was really dry. I remember it being lovely. I think it might have been like the Queens of the Stone Age day. Or one day it was just
Yeah.
really lovely. And then one day was horrendous. And I was like, oh, like it was just the worst. And then it just ruined everything. But the other 2 days were lovely.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, of course, we pulled up in that day. But it's been 30 years of good weather. One bad day
Yeah,
isn't so
you
bad.
can't go
Yeah.
too bad. What
Yeah.
I do, Dave, with all guests that come on, and I don't want to make any exceptions, is I like the listener to find out about you from the very beginning. So I always like to go back to the
Mm.
very start, and I'm always intrigued, especially when we get some one-on-one time. When you were growing up as a kid, maybe with your pocket money, or maybe a member of your family handed you a cassette or a CD, or maybe you bought it with your own pocket money, but that first album that you remember buying and having such an impact on you.
Oh, the first one I ever bought myself would have been Among the Living by
Yeah.
Anthrax because of a song called Caught in a Mosh that my cousin had played me at a Christmas party. So I had this cousin Stefan. He was kind of like he was the one that got us all into playing music, and he had a brother Vaughn, and they were massive metalheads. So Stefan showed me Anthrax, and it was like right around the time like skateboarding is getting popular. Like Tony Hawk is this like kind of like this young public figure, and I'm seeing like Lance Mountain on the cover of skateboard magazines, and I'm like a shit skater because I'm like, I don't even own a board. I'm like 8 years old, but all my cousins do it. And this song gets put on, and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta figure this out. This is awesome. And I was like, what is this? He's like, I'll make you a tape. So he made me a tape. I ended up getting a little bit of allowance money, doing some chores. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Mario's Compact Discovery, which was like our local. So for any of our only streaming people that listen to this, like we used to have local CD stores as opposed to just like chain CD
Yeah.
stores. So just like a mom and pop's kind of grocery store, but filled with music. And essentially, the town's algorithm was the owner of the shop. So he would kind of suss you out, look at what you're checking out, and be like, I think you'd be into this. I think you'd be into this. So once I brought up, Among the Living, it just started off it kicked off this whole thing with him. And he took me down a great road with the big four that was supported by both my cousins.
Was he kind of like a Master Yoda kind of figure that you go back to him and be like, I need more, and he'd be like, here you go, and give you like Metallica and Slayer and just keep kind of educating you each every week?
Yeah, if Master Yoda had a Patreon,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, that would be him. Yeah.
That's awesome though. I mean, that what foundations to build upon. Like, there's still a band that are touring now that are unbelievable live, and yeah, I mean, where'd you go from there? Did you go heavier? Did you go a bit more commercial and go down the whole kind of new metal route, or did you just carry on with the kind of real heavy metal?
Yeah, I think it was just another lane to kind of
Yeah,
follow. Of course, as a West Indian kid, I was raised on reggae, tons of old folky soca, stuff like that. A lot of Byron Lee, a lot of the trade winds, and, like a Guyanese special band for my parents. And I mean, obviously the Bob Marleys, but we had an uncle that also invested a lot in the Roots Radix era of reggae. So when Bob Marley was just kind of popping off in the 80s again, having that kind of like new wave of success with the youth, it was like all of a sudden there was this music in Jamaica born out of rockers, reggae, and disco and funk, and it's called the Volcano sound. So we were just drawn to that, and Volcano eventually became dance hall. And yeah, so it was just metal was just one of those things that was amongst just a ton of different stuff because my parents were always very open with their record collection. I could go and put on Parliament and get down and, I mean, my dad would bring home 45s every once in a while and be like, "Hey, check this out. This is Brad." So, and I
that's
remember
awesome.
him getting ready for work, listening to Kung Fu Fighting all the time.
So a complete variety going on all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This is awesome. So when it came to live music, one of my first shows was Green Day in Wolverhampton, a small
Yeah.
show, and I'm talking early Green Day. So Dookie had just come out, so everyone was like listening to like When I Come Around and Basket Case for the first time, and
Amazing.
those sort of songs were just on MTV2 and Kerrang all the time. And I was really young, so I think I may have been 12 or 13, and I went in. My parents dropped me off. I went into the gig, and I just genuinely at that point couldn't believe that three people, because that was Green Day at that point, there wasn't an extra guitarist, there wasn't a keyboard player or percussion. It was
Yeah.
purely just the three of them. And I couldn't believe that like Mike, Trey, Billy were just making that much music and make like kind of so much sound. I was just blown away. And the moment that Billy Joe Armstrong came on stage and started singing and playing guitar, that was it. That was all I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I was like, that is one of the best frontmen I've ever seen. I never thought that, that would then lead to Korn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, Pearl Jam, all these other bands. But
Yeah.
seeing Green Day for the first time, that was like the bar was so high. I wondered if you had kind of a great first gig experience, or was it an embarrassing one that you kind of hide from people and don't really share and tell everyone? Is it one that you like? Well, actually, it was this really terrible band.
Oh, it was pretty rad, actually. It was Corrosion of Conformity
Oh
and
wow,
Megadeth.
Jesus, man,
So, I mean, of course, I'd been to local gigs and stuff like that where my cousins' bands were playing and stuff like that. But first major band that I went to go see, yeah, was Megadeth and Corrosion of Conformity. And this was right around, I believe, Lick My Wounds by Corrosion of Conformity was out.
yeah.
And Euthanasia had just been released by Megadeth. So so it was still the Nick Menza, Marty Friedman, Dave and Dave lineup. which for me, that's like the lineup of my youth. I mean, they've had incredible lineups ever since,
Yeah,
but I mean, that was just the one for me. Like Nick Menza was one of those drummers that drew me into listening to drums, kind of like Charlie from Anthrax,
yeah, that's fair.
and yeah, I just remember that gig being offered all types of things I'd never been offered before, like pot, acid, this and that. And I wanted to try them all, of course, being a 14-year-old kid,
Of course.
right? But my best friend, Brent Sarson, he kept on knocking stuff away from me. He's like, yeah, no, 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 we're not getting you there yet. But yeah, it didn't work
That's
in the end, but
no. That's
but
unbelievable though,
yeah.
dude. Like the foundations for your first sort of albums and live shows, like you didn't start small, did you? You went boom, straight with the big hitters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, like there's always like things that you go see with your parents, like, you're at a Christmas market and there's a Christmas band playing, but the first real gig would have been Megadeth and Corrosion.
Were you at that point already at that age thinking I want to be in a band, or was it just loving live music and never even going down that? Were you still in the kind of mentality of I want to be like Tony Hawk and I want to play, video games and smoke weed and just literally play games all day?
Kind of, honestly, kind of all of the above. I
Yeah.
mean, I you know, I still love video games to this day. But I was playing sports, playing music, enjoying life, thinking about what I wanted to be. To be honest, I was thinking more like sports medicine,
Yeah.
right? But then I also had this thought where it's like, I love traveling with my parents. So, what if, who is this person bringing these guitars out to my heroes, right? I always had a little, even though that's not really based in like a very achievable mindset. My mindset was more like, okay, well, it's pretty much impossible to become a famous guitar player. So why not like fix guitars or like do this or do that? And a lot of the guys at my local store, music store, were pretty mean. So I was just kind of like, I could probably do this better.
Yeah.
So
That's a
yeah,
good
I
that's a good
mean,
mentality to have.
yeah. So the first goal was essentially like the first thing that I really set my mind to was like fix guitars and maybe travel with the bands fixing their guitars. I had no idea what a guitar tech was. I was just like, yeah, I'd like to be that guy handing somebody a guitar.
So how did it change to them wanting to be the guy that was handed the guitar?
Well, just meeting Derek on my first day of high school, we formed a massive like just a massive bond on that very first day.
Literally day
And
one.
day one of high school, I
Wow.
mean, there are so many rare occurrences that we experience in life. And one of them is getting to meet people where you click with them immediately and okay, you know, when you reflect on this, you think, okay, this was a person
Meant to be in my life.
well, fate is an odd thing, whether you believe in it or not. But I mean, it's just we are of the same cloth. Like we definitely will be friends for a long time, you know? And I've been lucky enough to have that with all these guys, but met Cone not too long after, and yeah, I got asked to be in the band, but kept on saying no because I was in a metal band, like a rival band in Ajax, which was the best band in Ajax, by the way. It was the best.
And always will
Don't
be.
listen. Yeah, yeah. If you interview any of the other guys, don't listen to them. My band was the best. But we bonded so well and had such a good friendship that one day I was driving home from Toronto and a friend of mine, not by choice, by the way, I'd been completely friend zoned. Um, we're driving home from Toronto and I'm like, Derek and Steven, they're asking me to come and play in Song 41, and I just don't know if I should do it. She's like, yeah, you're friends with me. You totally should. And then I just look over and I'm like, yeah, You're so right. Yeah, you're right. I should totally do it. You're right. You're so beautiful. And just ended up like completely going to this rehearsal space because, I just hadn't tried anything before and in the realm of punk rock, and then just sat with these guys and we liked a lot of the same bands. We were just having fun playing music together, and it was unlike anything I had had before. So it was like in my other band that I was in Ajax, I was playing with my cousin, and it was all of a sudden like playing with three of my cousins.
Yeah,
So it was just amazing, and immediately started just being like, okay, I think that this
this
might
is meant
be,
to be. Yeah.
yeah, well, meant to be in the sense that this is where I'm going to have the most fun. At that point, I still had kind of that reality, that realistic mindset, I should say.
Did you kind of then decide to leave the other metal band, or were you trying to juggle between the two?
Yeah, I tried to juggle between the two, but I mean, for me, that never really works.
Never.
I always have to have a main focus because multitasking, especially when you're splitting your creativity between two bands, for a person like me, maybe mine's limited compared to other people, but to immerse myself into a project, it needs my full attention, all of my love, and all of my care. So that's eventually what happened, and I pushed it all into Sum 41. Just seeing what was happening at shows, reactions, and people that we were meeting in the industry, and it was just like there's something really special going on here. And yeah, before you
I
knew
think
it,
unless you're Mike Patton, you can't ever do it. He's the only person in the world that could do it and do it well in everything he ever does. But I
he
think to put
he
your heart
is
into
music
one,
though.
yeah, it's,
Yeah.
I just think he's the one guy that can go, I'm doing this band now and it's flawless. And then you think his heart is in that. And then he'll go off and then do Faith No More. And you're like, yep, that's where his heart should be. That's his band.
Yeah.
But then he goes and does Mr. Bungle. And you're like, okay, this guy is a robot. He's a machine. There's no one else like it. But I'm the same. I do and have done other podcasts, but my heart is in this one. And the others feel fun
Mhm.
and they're good. And it's nice to talk to other people. But I always feel like this one's home. And I'm sure that's the same with you with Sum 41.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm thinking now then, so at this point, you're rehearsing. Are Sum 41 at that point when you're in the rehearsal room and you say it's like three cousins and the chemistry's great and you and Derek have hit it off and Conan and all of you are like excited and playing music and it feels right. But was it heavy enough for you at that point, knowing that those bands you listened to, the gigs you were going to, the metal band that you were kind of in, was Sum 41 a breath of fresh air because it wasn't metal and it was a bit more punky and a bit more, radio friendly? Or were you just kind of thinking to yourself, I'm just going to let the kind of dynamics of the band kind of shape themselves?
Well, without getting too heavy into how it's made, the nuances between the two different genres and the nuances between any style of guitar,
Yeah.
they're always a welcome challenge for me. And it's kind of it was just a different mindset to get into to play. With metal, we were filling as many spaces as we could, and with punk rock, it was just kind of like letting everything breathe, letting everything have its moment, and it was a little more organic. And at that time too, actually, we were still playing with our ex-bass player named Twitch. So Cone hadn't even entered the fray yet. He was in another band called Second Opinion at the time. Um, they actually rehearsed the street over from me. They would always tell the drummer's mom that they're going to my house to get a patch cable when they would go to smoke pot.
And vice
And
versa.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it was inevitable for Cone to join Sum 41
Yeah.
because yeah, I think he just got tired of borrowing patch cords. But we we just had this love for heavy metal, the four of us still, that we'd break into Metallica every now and then, and we'd always cover everything from pop to funk to stuff like that. And we love rap music too. So I mean, sometimes we jam out on old License to Ill riffs and stuff like
Oh,
that. Yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah. So I mean, it's it was just it was essentially every musical genre that I loved. We all share the same kind of mind frame, and being in that moment, it was like it's like feels like musical heaven if it exists.
That's awesome. It's
Yeah,
like a big pot of all your favorite stuff, and it didn't matter what went in as long as you were all happy and kind of letting the music just go where it was meant to go.
yeah, absolutely.
That's so
And
healthy.
yeah, especially, not that I didn't have that in the rival band 747. It was just different. It was more the scene that we were in as opposed to the the guys in the band.
Yeah,
So the guys in the band, we were all very similar. The singer was a DJ, and still incredibly like in Orangeville, Ontario, he makes like some of the best dub music. Very, very experimental, and always had that forward and progressive moving mindset. But like we were just in this genre of closed-minded heavy metal, essentially like I guess like jocks and bullies, right?
that's fair.
Where it just seemed like this elite club. And I was like, this is like, it doesn't feel inclusive. It doesn't feel right. So I was going to go somewhere where we were all happy. Everybody was welcome. It just, it felt better in Sum 41 being within the scene that Sum 41 lived in.
Did you feel at that point, and I know it's hard because you're going back, how many years are we talking now? This is going to scare me. At this point, how old are you at this point?
44 now.
Yeah,
So
so
1980, baby.
wow. Uh,
Yeah.
so at this point, when you're jamming with the band, you're playing, and you're kind of getting an idea of the songs and the way they're going to evolve and how the music's going to make Sum 41 be Sum 41. Have you and Derek at that point got any expectations, or are you just too young and too kind of too naive and too kind of innocent at that point to even think, oh, we want to have a number one record, we want to tour? Were you just there to try and just have fun and do what a kid at that age would normally do?
Well, I think expectations, the only expectations we had were of ourselves.
Yeah.
We knew that, the industry is what it is, and it's a very easy thing to figure out at a very young age, and unfortunately, we had one of the worst teachers you could ever have in the music industry in our original manager. But also because of that relationship, we ended up being able to be afforded different opportunities that bands around us weren't being afforded. Unfortunately, they came at a very, very heavy cost to one of my favorite people in the entire world.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all in Derek's book, Walk in Disaster, and it's worth a read. It's and especially if you are thinking of getting into the music business, especially as a
It's a
songwriter.
bit of a wake up call and reality check that it's not all beautiful and smells of roses and it's all great, because there's obviously challenges. And I know
Yeah,
without getting into it today, I want to avoid all that. It's a
yeah,
celebration of Sum 41, but it's not all that people believe that's out there. And I think I've downloaded it as an audiobook on Spotify, so when I'm driving, I can
yeah,
hear it. And I'm really excited to kind of get his idea and his perspective on everything, because I've not interviewed him. I probably won't interview him, but I feel like I need to know the story after interviewing you and Cone so many times. I feel like there's more to know?
yeah. Oh, I mean, picture this too, right? You grow up with this guy, and
Yeah.
you're on stage with this guy every single night, and it's one of your closest, that like the guy knows everything about me. You know what I mean? And you just see somebody being crowd surfed in Bologna, Italy, and they're being crowd surfed and they're just holding a copy of his book, right? So not only has one of your buddies written a book, somebody's
Yeah.
being crowd surfed with it, and it was one of those moments that was really really cool.
Is he trying to
So,
sign
but
it while he's crowd surfing with a pen in one
no,
hand, a book in the other?
no idea. I think it was more just like,
Derek, sign this.
look,
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, yeah. So it's I mean, to sum it up, expectations, no, of our surroundings,
Yeah.
there's no way. Those having expectations of the outside world, usually leads to disappointment. So we just figured we do the best that we can and see what happens, reaction wise from the world.
So when you actually sitting there, 2001, All Killer No Filler's being recorded, you must be knowing inside, even if your expectations are only on yourself and that's all you're trying to do is, be your own person, be as the band. You must have known with Island Music as a label, with Aquarius as the back in, you must have had something inside when you're listening back to those songs of kind of like this does feel right, this does feel positive. You can't surely just sleep on those songs and think they're all right, knowing that, let's be honest about it, any song on that album could be a single. It's a reason why people use that album now as a reference point for guitar sounds, for drum sounds, for pop songs, for rock songs. It is genuinely a work of art. So you must be so happy that it's like this legacy album that people have with like Nirvana, Nevermind, Offspring, Smash, Green Day, Dookie.
Yeah.
It's one of those Weezer Blue album. It's one of those kind of staples in the music industry. You can't have been recording thinking this is all right. You must have known that you're onto a winner.
Well, first of all, those are massive records to be put into company with. So thank you. That's
I mean
crazy.
it. It really is.
That's huge. That's a massive compliment. But when you're doing these things, when you're tracking, you're recording, all you're thinking about is, okay, play this right, play it in tune, and catch a vibe. Like Jerry was an incredible engineer. All those tones were of his making. Like he was the one that was like, I think you should try all of these different amps, see what you like, and then see what you like. He was a master of providing several different tones
Yeah.
that will work, and then being like, what are you comfortable with? So that was such an amazing part because it makes you feel like you're a part of creating this record. Um, but the thing is, it's like there's unsureness in our camp at that time. Like we had been turned down by every single punk rock label. Eventually, we put out a tape that kind of showed the personality of Sum 41.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we're on Island Def Jam. So at the point, at that point, we weren't like, oh, this is amazing, this is going to do it. At that point, we were more like, we have no fucking choice but to have this be a successful record. We have to do the
So
best
much
job we
pressure.
absolutely
Yeah.
can. Yeah, it is a ton of pressure, but because of the lighthearted mood and the camaraderie between all of us and the vibe that Jerry and Joe set in the studio, it was a great place to be, a great place for creativity to come out of each of the members. And I did not have the feeling, that confident feeling of like, oh yeah, we got a hit on our hands until Island was like, we don't have a hit on this record. They were like, we need a couple more singles at least. And we were like, ooh, okay. So Derek kind of went to the lab, and does what he does on every single record. Comes back with an absolute hit. So he used to have this old Roland VST. I can't remember if it was like a 16 or a 24 track. I think it was a 16. Old school. So digital recording on there and like everything. It's an all-in-one kind of unit. And he plays us this demo that he's got, and it turns out to be Fat Lip. And that was the point where we were like, okay, we got something really, really special here. Like, if none of these other songs do anything for us, we
This is the
really
one.
think that this is a song that we are massively confident with. And yeah, until that moment, it was like head down, make this record, hope for the best. And then at that point, we were kind of like that put a little bit of wind in our sails, and we were like, okay, we can actually go
It's
do
quite
something with
scary,
this.
isn't it, that if the label were happy with the original set of songs and said, "All right, yeah,
Yeah.
that'll do." Not
Well,
exactly
they
what we wanted, but it's good enough. It'll be okay. You would have never have had that moment for Derek to go off and write that absolute anthem that kind of opened every single door you could ask for.
Yeah, I mean, they liked the original In Too Deep, so they were like, that's going to be
Yeah,
our single. And for us, we were just kind of like, okay, that's great, but we don't want to kind of like fall into that, this is a ska band, this is that, you know what I mean? We going to Goldfinger shows and, everybody thinking that Goldfinger is simply just the band that plays Superman.
yeah.
Meanwhile, they have this great catalog behind them, you know what I mean?
It's so easy to do as
Um,
well. Like a lot of my favorite
yeah,
bands from that era, they're known for one or two songs, and you're like, oh, just listen to the rest of those albums. Trust me, there's some gems in there. But for some reason, you just get this is that band, this is the song, or if you're lucky, two or three songs,
yeah.
and that's you. That's you wrapped up, and that's you for life. And you're like, oh no, this band had so much more than this.
Yeah, and it's not we're not talking about things like, Portugal the Man where the sound evolved and then you get a bunch of songs like the massive hit.
Yeah,
In the 2000s it's like a lot of bands were like, okay, we'll take a shot with this lighter song. And actually oddly enough, we heavied up In Too Deep from the original demo. So that was when we played it for them, and they were like, "What have you done to this song? We need another single ASAP." Now, yeah, now I'm remembering as I kind of recall it.
that's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, and then this is the version that made it, and man, it's yeah, that song went through a few different lifespans, which was kind of cool.
So what was it like then at that point then when okay now you've got the golden ticket and you did genuinely become this, not that the work wasn't put in, not that the graph wasn't there, not
Mhm.
that you deserved it, but the I'm talking overnight success in the name that Sum 41 was. Enemy, Kerrang, Melody Maker at the time, MTV2, Kerrang, Scuzz. It was genuinely played absolutely everywhere. It was the song that kind of you go to a club and it was always that there's certain songs like Paramore, Papa Roach. There's certain songs, isn't there, that just whatever happens, if that song plays, everyone comes on. That was you. That was you, the band. You suddenly become that band overnight.
It's, I mean, man, being a punk rock band in Toronto at the time that we were, it was it was very weird
Yeah.
because there was a lot of anger. We would always play with or be billed with indie bands.
Okay.
And indie on that wave was kind of out at that point. So all we got was shit from all these indie bands that were like, come, let's all be hippies, let's be friendly, let's be this. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden they fucking hated our guts. So we always heard these songs on the radio, heard people reacting, saw people reacting, but I don't know if it was a leftover thought process. I'm not going to say the word trauma because it wasn't traumatic.
No.
It was just conditioning. We were conditioned to be like, we're kind of shit, eh? Like we're we're doing our best, but we're not the best. And so all that stuff, it felt surreal, but I think through a feeling of that kind of popular term, like, or that feeling of being an imposter syndrome.
So when was it you were able to digest that and accept that you had become something that okay, it might not be cool with the indies, and it might be that you're this outcast suddenly because not that you sold out, but you're in the top 10 and you're touring at the festivals, you're playing on the bigger bills now, and you're not in the tiny tents and people are singing back your songs to you. And you must have seen yourself evolve, and every gig you went to, more people had your t-shirts. And surely you can take a step back at that point and think, okay, we're doing well. This is success. This is good. This is healthy. We're not having to do other jobs now. This is our sole purpose, and this is we've deserved this, you know?
I'm hoping maybe February 2025. I'm hoping when
Is that
that's
when
when
you
that feeling
finally
finally
get to
happens. Yeah, yeah,
really
I
do
think
it?
so. Yeah. Without a
Wow.
little bit of it creeping in. No, it's always over the shoulder, that
Really?
feeling.
Every
For me
time?
especially. For me especially. It's and I don't know if it's due to a lack of confidence, but or if that's what drives me in my
Yeah.
brain to be the best that I can be, because essentially I'm, one fifth of this moving train. So it's like I have to come correct and come prepared. But truthfully, looking out and seeing people smiling, you know, almost being drawn to tears, and being drawn to tears actually at the thought of this thing ending. It it's obviously something that has meant something to people,
Yeah.
and the fact that more people are showing up than they ever have, within the past like 5 to 6 years, it's an absolutely beautiful thing. And the feeling of all this work and all the positivity and the negativity and all the stuff in between, that led us to this kind of moment where we're sitting there and we're, Derek's thanking the audience for all of the years. I've really had some time to put into perspective and have those cities and those moments kind of flash before my eyes. And it, it's every feeling all at once, all the way from sadness to like absolute elation. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's just everything. It's beautiful and it's heartbreaking at the same time.
It must be surreal. And I remember actually being sat in your dressing room at Download, and
Yeah.
I was talking to you and Cone, and I said to you, what does it feel like knowing this is your last UK festival? And after me, you did an interview with Kerrang, and you were sat outside, and they were kind of interviewing you, and you said, it didn't actually hit me. I never realized this was our last UK festival until the last interview just told me. And I was
Yeah.
like, that was me. I was like, that was me. I was sat in that room with him.
Yeah.
But it only kind of clicked and dawned on you that, I think you must have been just so caught up in everything and seeing other bands and the kind of
Yeah.
the height of
Yeah.
Download Festival. But I remember you kind of stopping and you're kind of you were like a rabbit in the headlights. You were like, "Oh my God, shit! Yeah, you're right. This is the last UK
Yeah.
festival." And I kind of felt bad, like, "Oh shit! Did I just remind him that did he not know? Did they not tell him?"
No, no, we're not beefing at all. Don't worry. We're all
No,
good. The,
we're still good friends.
the
That's good.
yeah, exactly, exactly. No, I mean, just the thought process, and I'm sure my eyes kind of went to the same place, talking about reliving those moments. It was just one of those things where you're reminded, like, oh yeah, 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 step outside of the job for a second and really put yourself in the moment and realize how special it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, you get caught up seeing everybody. You're in the stress of like trying to make sure everybody, gets across the mud puddle to get to you, stuff like that. So yeah, and we had just rolled in like not too much earlier.
No,
And
it was so surreal, and you all had your own little wardrobes outside,
yeah,
and I just felt like there's this little kind of crew area, and you guys stood out because you had all the set list out, and I was like, oh God, I shouldn't be seeing this. I felt like an intruder, like I don't want to know the set list for tonight. This should be a big moment in kind of you should have it in real time. I should not have any spoilers. And I remember walking away from that festival, and it didn't feel real. And I'm sure I'm saying this to you, and you must have been completely on the end of pinching yourself, like, is this really the last UK festival? But it didn't. As much as Derek gave a speech, and as much as everyone was getting emotional, and it was all over the poster and sold as the last ever, it still didn't feel like that chapter had closed. It was weird. I just left thinking, okay, that was cool. That was just some 41 at download. I didn't feel like that's never going to happen again.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the feeling too, towards the beginning of the show.
Yeah,
Like it's just like, okay, get out there, do this, but then that realization, it keeps on coming in. And yeah, I mean, that was the last UK festival. Last night was our last show in Bologna, one of our favorite places in the entire planet to play. And we were told when we were our first trip to Italy, we played a place called Transylvania in Milan, right down the road from San Siro. AC and Inter were playing that day.
oh wow.
We played to about maybe 80 to 100 people. Great show, great kids, but got taken out by the label afterwards. And he was like, what do you want to eat? We're like, pasta. He's like, of course you want pasta. Right. So immediately we're like, oh, this guy's a little got a little toot. All right. So takes us out, sits us down. Some of the greatest food I've ever had in my life. It was so good. And then this guy just breaks it down for us. Like I'm mid chew and he's like, you'll never make it in Italy.
Wow.
And it was just like, it was a sinking feeling. And, here we are, you know, we're headlining our last show in Rome tonight. We headlined Unipol Arena last night in Bologna and we did it, and Italy ended up being this country that I have an absolute love affair with. And I, we're my fiance and I were thinking of being snowbirds down in Sicily. It's
That's
like,
awesome.
yeah, and it's part of this amazing thing that we've all gotten to do just for sticking out past the sore fingers when we started playing guitar.
Please tell me you've invited that guy to the show tonight. This one's
We
for you. Remember when you said
yeah.
we'll never make it? This one's for you, buddy.
Oh my God. No, I mean, you know what? I was gonna say we're not that petty, but
You should.
maybe we should. Yeah,
And
maybe
we'll
I
take
and
you out for
yeah,
dinner
yeah.
tonight and we'll share.
Yeah, maybe I just play a guy who's not petty on TV. Yeah.
So now we're here, and the worst part is there's going to be so many milestones along this journey of the final kind of run, and it's depressing saying this, but the UK's now ticked off. You've done the final ever UK shows. Now it's Italy,
Dude.
Europe, and then it becomes America, and each time you're going to see this list of different ticks, but it's not like an accomplishment. It must feel like I don't know. You've said it already on this interview today. It's a world of
Yeah.
emotions. You can't be celebrating, but also at the same time, each day another chapter's kind of closing of this big book.
So to break it down, the reflection on these
Yeah,
places is absolutely beautiful. So
yeah,
Wembley was massively emotional for me. I
yeah.
actually just sat in my bunk with my eyes open in the dark when we were headed to the next place. Like it was just like it's so odd that this place where I'll visit on vacation, but for the most part, it's like I get to play a show for two of my cousins that live over in UK. And I held them as babies and we've kind of grown up together to become really close. And this was always a thing that we would do together. It's not that we can't just go and hang out when I visit now,
Of course.
but it's like that chapter of like, looking down into the pit or looking over to the side of the stage and seeing real blood family.
Yeah,
It's like those days are over. The days of like coming to essentially the UK has some of my favorite people on the planet, and I've been named an honorary Geordie. You know what I mean? So,
I've seen
so
this. I was listening to
yeah,
your interview with Sean and Morgan from Sapling Podcast, who are
yeah,
great
absolutely.
friends. You know, us and those guys are like brothers. And yeah, I didn't realize just how much of a Newcastle fan you were. I knew you loved them, and at Dano you gave me one of your last plectrums, which was the Newcastle
Yeah,
logo, and I
yeah,
was like, oh, that's awesome. But I didn't realize just how much they meant to you.
yeah, absolutely. And it's just part of this this love affair that I also have had with the UK. And maybe not the policies and the
Yeah,
politicians,
fuck all those. Yeah, we
yeah,
ignore them every
but
day. That's why I do this
but
podcast
the
to not have to think about those.
yeah, but one thing that I have to say is that a country is always about the people in it for
Yeah,
me, because that's who I get the privilege of being around. And yeah,
that's a
it
lovely way
was
to think about it.
yeah, Wembley was really emotional and tough. And yeah, looking out onto that crowd and essentially having a return to that arena because we had first played that on All Killer No Filler, and then
Wow.
dip down to academies, eventually back down to a club when we came back. And yeah, so to bookend a career like that with two Wembleys, it's huge, especially for a band that pretty much lost all industry support for almost a decade
It's
of our
unheard of, isn't
lives.
it? It's just like it's like a film. It feels like a Hollywood movie.
It does feel a bit like a movie.
Yeah.
It's wild, but I mean I mean, but in the end, it just shows that it is all about music. And I mean, we're not the first to have done it. I mean, Iron Maiden was never a big
No.
radio band, but still can put can put stadium shows together to this day. Yeah.
I'm thinking now, what's it feel like when it's the final run?
Oh,
Not far away.
Canada.
I don't want to end on
Yeah.
a low, but I'm thinking reality is it isn't, 3 months time, that's it. The guitar gets on its stand and the box gets shut and you're like, I can reflect now. Where am I going to live? Where do I want to be? Who do I want around
Yeah.
me? What do I do with all this time?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, Kendra and I, we have one more year with our son in the house, so that'll pretty much be the year that I'm home. And yeah, I mean, I'm to be honest, I'm kind of looking forward to the sadness. I'm looking forward to the motivation of
Yeah.
having a void to fill musically. Um, I'm positive about the future and also the way we're leaving off. So Canada is going to feel rough, especially Toronto, but I'm going to be surrounded by family and friends on both nights, and I think that that's going to really help me get through because that's been the driving force of getting me through my toughest times, throughout my entire life.
I think you kind of, as well, you, as much as excited, you have this excitement inside you about music in the future and everything
Mm.
else that can come along. Surely you've earned a bit of a rest and a bit of a, like you said, the final year with your son and just to have a normal life for a bit and just be able to pause some other things and just spend time with loved ones and family and just reflect. Like I asked you today, back in 2001, what was it like with All Killer No Filler? And you kind of said in your own words, you've never stopped, you've never reflected, you've never taken a full step back and seen just what's happened. It's always been one ongoing big journey. But now that kind of
Yeah.
part of the journey is ending. Now you can actually look back and, reflect. You probably haven't reflected for 20 years.
No, not really. I mean, I had 10 years out of the band, but those were also, sorry, 9 years, 9 years out of the band.
Yeah,
And those were all spent hustling and moving and, recording bands, being in other bands. It's like,
exactly.
yeah, none of us have ever really stopped. And most of all, the person that has never ever stopped is Derek. It's like we had a conversation where he told me, and I'm quoting you, he's like, I got to see what that's like someday. And I was like, what do you mean? Like going to the place that I just told you about? And he's like, no, 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 like vacation. He's like, I've never actually taken an actual vacation. There's
Surreal,
always
isn't
been
it?
some sort of work involved with it, and always writing and yeah. So
Always pressure as well, isn't there? There's always a
yeah,
deadline. There's always a time frame. There's always somewhere you've got to be. I don't know. Maybe you'll all go crazy and be like, right, we're going to be like Kiss. We're doing another. This is the final
yeah,
tour.
yeah. Being a songwriter and being a naturally gifted songwriter, I think it's one of the most amazing curses you could ever be
Yeah.
blessed with. You know, the art of expression through that language that he speaks, and then you know, just the responsibilities that come with it. Um, they can they can pull you in either direction, and yeah, I think he's navigated pretty well for the hand that he's been dealt with, the things that he's been through.
People will listen today and be saying, Mark, why have you not asked if there's anything in the works? Like, as this chapter closes, is there already plans for you? I think I asked you a little bit of download, but we didn't have very long. But
Mm.
you were kind of like you're never going to stop. You're not just going to retire and never play guitar again. And you see
Yeah.
super groups come up, and you see other bands jam in. And is there anything already that you can kind of talk about, or
Well,
anything that you're thinking
I,
about that
I mean, me, the original drummer from Death by Stereo, Ephraim, the vocalist, and Randy from Pennywise, we're always kicking riffs around. We've got a little project that we're doing. The four of us in the band, we would love to keep playing, do some sort of like, I don't know, like the attractions or the news or something like that. Just there's a lot of great chemistry and camaraderie between the four of us. And but we would never want to do Sum 41 without Derek, and I
no,
don't think it would even be possible.
no.
It would be embarrassing, to be honest. But yeah, and then kind of find my footing as a songwriter. I've always been the type of person that will work with songwriters and supplement things as far as like, oh, I need a lick here, I need a lead here. What do you got? Um, yeah, so finding out what kind of songwriter I am with this like super confusing array of music that I was brought up with is very interesting to me. And going through my hard drive and going through all the voice notes that I've recorded at 4 in the morning and this and that.
You can
Yeah, I can't
probably
wait
do
to
something
see.
with it. You've got a clean slate.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens with it. And we kind of live in an age where, you're having a label is a beautiful thing. But if you don't really want a label, you can kind of go the Joey Valence and Bray way. You know what I mean? Who, are just absolutely crushing it right now. And I'm really proud of those guys.
I love the DIY approach. It's the way I've been
Yeah.
brought up, and I'm always about people. Well, that's me. I'm a one man team. I have no one else. It's just
Yeah.
me. So I'm speaking from the heart about it every day. But you don't. I think there's something quite magical about people that still print out their own posters and does their own marketing and goes out there and kind of waves their own flag because it's from the heart, isn't it? You haven't got anyone else telling you what to do or where to be or how to do things. And yeah, it can go completely wrong and tits up, but at least you can say, you know, I did it the way I wanted.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm looking forward to the challenge and the uncomfortable positions that I put myself in due to this. Yeah.
Well, at least you're not telling me today that that's it. Some people are like, that's it now. That's all I want to do.
I mean, hey, if this is it as far as success in life within music, I can't complain, man. Like I've always had this like I said, this state of mind that makes me think that this is such a random thing. And you talk about winning the lottery, I think the chances of this are even less.
Yeah.
And it's just, if this was it, I'd be okay with it. Um, do I
It's
want to
pretty awesome
continue?
to be able to look back and even
Yeah,
if that you'd be like, I've done enough. I feel like I did win the lottery.
absolutely. But now's the time to get to know myself creatively
Yeah.
and see if there's another chapter, you know? And if
That's
not,
exciting.
yeah, if not, yeah, exactly. If not, it was an exciting time and I had a blast doing it.
And look at Linkin Park as a story. You know, that's the thing at the moment. Brand new album, new singer, everything
Oh,
changes, and they're still so now. Well, they're announcing, I think, stadium tours all over the world, and it's never always goodbye forever. I think there's always. I'm not saying that suddenly some 41 are going to do a Linkin Park. That's the last thing I'm saying. But what I am saying is the doors are never closed forever. You know.
yeah, yeah. I don't think that we would. I mean, first and foremost, I think she's doing an amazing job.
Me too.
And
Absolutely
but
awesome.
yeah, absolutely. And but for us, I think even going back to the four of us continuing on together, I think we would love to do something with established singers. Like if established singers have records that they want to put out outside of their bands, it's like we'd love to be that band, like they're like doing audio slaves type of thing.
I really hope tomorrow I don't wake up and it's like Enemy have said, Sum 41 will now continue with any other singer. I'm like, oh no, that's not what I was trying
Oh
to
yeah, yeah,
say.
no, 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 we're not doing that. Yeah.
No.
No, no, no.
I had Dave Lombardo on here and we were talking about Empire State Bastard and we talked about
Yeah.
Slayer and all I said to him was, would you ever go back to Slayer? And the whole interview for an hour was all about his new projects and Mr. Bungle and the one
Yeah.
headline that made it and was all over the press, which was great to see the podcast out there. And but it was all Dave Lombardo says he'll never return to Slayer, and I was like, that's not. That was
That's not
ten
what, yeah.
seconds of a 2 hour interview, you know.
Hey, I mean, listen, that kind of stuff caused a massive rift between us and Blink
Yeah,
and and even Jerry, the producer. Yeah, just things that were just taken out of interviews that weren't necessarily said in the context that they were put.
I feel like we've been
But
safe today. I feel like we're okay.
yeah, 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 absolutely. But also, that's the press was reaching a point where the internet was getting bigger and I mean,
Grasping at anything that was around. Yeah,
yeah, you have to protect. As much as it upset me, you have to protect the people that are working underneath you,
of
and you
course.
have to make sure that you have a job. That's one of the drawbacks of capitalism, but well, that's a different podcast.
I was going to say we're not going to go down that
Yeah,
one.
that I
Th-
think that one's called Marx and Me, right? Yeah.
That's what I'll release at the end of Mark and Me. Yeah, that's
Okay,
it. There's my
perfect.
legacy.
Yeah.
So, Dave, I asked you this at a festival, but I think you and Cone were kind of battling it between you. But what I do on this podcast at over 400 episodes now, and it's a good one to end with, is you get to choose the last song that's played. So after I've edited the interview and I put it out there, and the Sum 41 fans will be listening to me and you talking for an hour, at the very end of our interview on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and stuff, a piece of music will play at the very end, but every episode is different because every guest chooses a different piece of music. So I am putting you on the
Mhm.
spot. But what would you love? And maybe things are different now since we met in June, and maybe now because of the end of Sum 41, something else might come to your heart. But what was the song that you
Let's
think would be the outro song for us today?
It'll be the last song that I listen to before I go on stage every single night.
Oh, nice.
I have a playlist that I play um, that basically yeah, I listen to every single day.
Same
And
order
it's
and same playlist?
same order, same playlist.
Oh, lovely.
And then just this last song always puts me in the mood to work and get out there. And it's called Arrival. It's by The Alchemist. And the record, I believe, I think it's Israeli Salad. Yeah.
I've never heard this.
Oh, it's a little short, like minute 35, so it's actually kind of perfect for the end of the
Yeah,
episode.
no, that's great.
But it's one of my favorite tunes of all time, and it just has this incredible groove, incredible guitar lick that just makes you feel like you could go, you could stop bullets.
Ah,
Yeah.
now I'm going to spend the next week listening to this, then going down their whole kind of back catalogue, listening to nothing else, and I'll be like, Dave, you've cost me 2 weeks.
Well, hey, listen, I mean, The Alchemist is great. He's had a long career. And I mean, I was just listening to him and Earl Sweatshirt just the other day in the gym. And
Wow.
yeah, this guy is he's an unsung hero in my opinion of within hip hop.
I want you to send me this playlist after today's recording now, and I can then
Yeah.
kind of. How many tracks are we talking here?
We are 19 songs at an hour and
Ah,
4 minutes. Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, I hope you like it. It is a lot of 90s hip hop though. So you're gonna be like, this dude is definitely 44, could be 50.
Is there going to
Yeah.
be a playlist that follows it up for then when you've come off stage and you're like, right, I need to now completely take this to a different level?
Yeah, I'll send you both.
Yeah, you've actually got one, have you?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
I thought you were going to
Yeah,
make
it's
one. I thought this was
yeah.
going to like,
No, no, it's so there's a funk playlist and a reggae playlist that I'll go to afterwards. But then I'm always showering to hardcore hip hop. I don't
yeah.
know why, but that's yeah. So a lot of RJ Payne.
Oh wow, this is awesome. I
Yeah,
won't
man.
share it as well. I want the listeners out there to go think, I wonder what was on that. I'm never going to tell anyone.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe 2025 I'll sell the playlist
There you go.
when I'm out of money.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Dude, it's the third time you've been on the podcast, and obviously this time's your first time on your own, but it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so grateful for your time. I know how demanding people are right now of trying to get you on their podcasts and TV and radio, and it's all about this end of Sum 41. But I was there before you announced that you guys were parting, and I'm really grateful that you met me at Slam Dunk, you met me at Download in your own bloody dressing room, and you've always made kind of time for those around you. I've seen you do it. I've seen it with Sapnin. I've seen it with the other guys that are in the industry, and you and Cone have always kind of never said no, and you're always doing the kind of role of going out there and talking about Sum 41. And I hope you realize just how much everybody in the industry really appreciates it.
Well, I we have to thank guys like Fletcher, the other guys in Pennywise, Mike from NoFX, like all those guys really came to see us. Tim from Rancid, they always have time for people around them.
Yeah,
They always came and saw us and just kind of taught us how to be good to the people that are around us in Warped Tour because it can be easy to be overwhelmed in your 20s and your late teens, having all of this attention surrounding you. So we have those guys to thank for that, and thank you for noticing.
yeah, it means a hell of a lot. And thanks for obviously coming on the podcast again. The door's always open if you want to come back on and maybe in a year's time and talk about what you've done. You may have just been like, I just played video games for a whole year and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
it
Finally
wasn't what I
finished
thought.
Skyrim. Yeah, I finally got everything
Yeah,
done.
I found this
Yeah.
game called GTA 3. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dave, you've got 20 years to catch up on the future, but yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah, we should do a thing wwhere it's like Tom Hanks with SNL. I'll come on like 20 times.
that'd
Yeah,
be
there you
awesome.
go. Yeah.
I think at the moment, I think four. I think Neil Blomkamp has been on 4 times. So you're catching him up.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I'm
So,
coming for you, Neil.
oh, Alex Winter, he's been on 4 times as well. Obviously, Bill and
There we
Ted.
go.
So you're
Okay.
catching him up, man.
Well, I'll get my RTA to print off 2 pictures so I have my enemies on the
That's
on the
it. I'm
wall.
coming for you. Thank you
Oh
so much,
man, thank
Dave. I
you
really
so
appreciate
much.
it. I hope the tour and the last leg, obviously closer to home, is going to be perfect. I'm sure every European city now and
Mhm.
country is just going to give you the best send off. It's so good that England and Wales and Ireland gave you the perfect send off. It just sounds like it's everything's going to plan and how it should be.
Yeah, it all feels right and all feels good. And yeah, everything is being done the right way. And it's, yeah. It's hard to describe, but
I'm never going to ask you
yeah,
to try and describe it. It's one question you're probably going to get. It's like, what's
yeah,
it feel like to be the end? You're never
yeah,
going to be able to find the right words, are you? Let's
yeah.
be honest.
It's absolutely true. It'll be a lot of stumbling, smiling, eyes. Yeah.
Crying.
Yeah. Like those new TikTok videos, the new edits where it's just people breathing,
Yeah,
sighing, and not saying any lines. Yeah.
that'll be the next episode.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Mark, thank you, buddy.
So there's my interview with me and Dave from Sum 41. I'm so grateful he came back on. It was so nice to have his exclusive episode just for him. And he did reveal to me after we stopped recording that he listens to Mark and me when he's on tour. So I'm blown away by that, and I'm so grateful for him for coming back on and having his own time with Mark and me. If you haven't right now checked out the band's brand new album, please do. And if you're over in America and Canada, make sure you go to these final dates. So many of my friends went to the final UK dates and said it was absolutely amazing. So get this ticket because you're not going to want to miss out. And if you do, you won't have that chance to see them again. So don't miss out. Listen to Heaven and Hell and just give everything you can to this band and give them the send-off that they deserve. Right, before I go, I want you to know that if you've enjoyed today's episode, please share this. You know the score by now. You all have Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, whatever you use. But please share these episodes because it goes a massive long way. And also, if you want to support the podcast that little bit more, I do have a Patreon account. Each and every month you can sign up, and there's a link on markandme.com to give the podcast literally £1 or £2 a month. All that goes right back into the podcast, allows me to go out there to these festivals and gigs and record interviews like the one today. And that means basically you guys at home get more episodes if you can help me out via Patreon. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to the other sponsor of the Mark and Me podcast, Richer Sounds. If you're in the market for anything to do with audio and visual, go on richersounds.com or visit any of the high street stores. They won't be beaten on price and they really are the best guys out there. Right, it won't be long now till you get another episode of Mark and Me, but before I go, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.